Hey everyone, welcome back to Prime Comments. We're here to look at some of your comments from the past week, and let's just dive into it and I'll give you my response. Just to note, I am trying a slightly new microphone placement, audio setup. You see the mic right here, a little bit off to the side. I'm still working on ways I could possibly get it even closer, maybe more like right here. But someone did comment how my audio quality in Prime Comments wasn't exactly where they want it to be, so I am trying my best to improve things. Obviously, I have the mic to do it. I don't have a lavalier mic. That would make things maybe even easier. But you know what? Let's just go with it and see what happens. So, the first comment we have for this week comes from the Sega IP Resurrection Switch Online in Ocarina of Time. It is our Nintendo Prime Podcast, episode 76, that we live streamed on Thursday. And this comment comes from Crazy Old School. And he says, I want to know the purpose of paying for online when you can just play for free on PC. And reality is, I don't really know what the purpose is necessarily either, beyond the companies just wanting more money. Obviously, we've been able to game online for free forever, even on Nintendo systems. You used to be able to do it on PlayStation. You've never really been able to do it on Xbox per se, save for a few select titles. And obviously on PC, it's always been free. Whether you use Steam, whether you use Origin, whether you use good old games, it doesn't matter what platform you buy your games on, it's always been free to play online. So a lot of the excuses given for how, we need the infrastructure, we need online dedicated servers, we need this, we need to have services for voice chat. I'm like, but on PC, we can do voice chat for free through several applications. And they don't ever seem to have an issue with online servers. Now, granted, the user base of home consoles is larger than on PC in general. There's usually a higher user count playing an online multiplayer game on home consoles than on PC in general. Not overall. We know there's certain specific games like World of Warcraft over the years and some of those massive online multiplayer games that Fortnite, does extremely well on PC. But reality is that I'm not exactly sure. I don't support these console manufacturers charging for online services. I think there is a purpose for online services in so much of like Xbox Game Pass. I fully believe that is a worthwhile service, just like a Netflix kind of service. Go for it. Charge money for that. If Nintendo wanted to do an online subscription for a virtual console style thing, like it appears they're doing with the Nintendo Online service, fine. Charge for that. You absolutely should. You're getting content for your money. And I understand that Xbox and PlayStation over the years has sweetened the deal for this paying to play online thing by giving people free games every month. So even if you don't have any money, but you have that, you bought a year-long subscription to PSN or Xbox Live, you get free games every month. And I think that that's a very nice direction, but I also don't think it's one that justifies making it so if I want to play Madden online on Xbox, I gotta have Xbox Live. I don't see the correlation or the justification, and it kind of sucks Nintendo is finally going down that route, even though it's cheaper. And I'm not complaining about the price. I'm complaining about the concept of having to pay to play games like Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart 8 and such online. I don't believe in it. I don't think you should believe in it. And unfortunately, I can't give you a good reason for why they do it beyond just wanting that sweet extra bit of revenue. I mean, I think, what is it? The Xbox One has sold, 30 million, a little more than 30 million units or whatever, and yet Xbox has like 60 million or 70 million active Xbox Live subscriptions. These are trickling over from Xbox 360 or anyone who's gotten it on PC, and it's like, what are you going to do? I mean, that's a lot of money coming in every month. Even if you look at it as all those people, assume all 60, 70 million of those at $60 a year, that's a lot of extra revenue. So the reason they're doing it is because they can get away with it. I don't have a good reason for why they get away with it, beyond the fact that people want to play these games online so bad that they're willing to pay for it. And really, it's kind of like, why are games still $60? Why this? Why that? The pricing and the way things are is basically what they can get away with. It's what the market's willing to accept. And right now, the market has widely accepted paying to play games online. It sucks because we already pay for our internet connections, and we already buy the games, and we already pay for the console, and now we have to pay a fee just to access online. I don't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it. Moving on, our next comment comes from Nintendo has dropped the ball on Switch in 2018. Very interesting video I made. Again, I'll have links to all the videos down in the description. And this one comes from Gimpy the Spaceman, and he said this. Forgetting that most major releases are either in May, the tail end of summer, or in the fall season around the holidays, with that in mind, May 3rd saw the release of Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, a sturdy port and an enticing game on its own. In June, you had the release of Fortnite, a major game still in Hi-Rez's Paladins, with the free-to-play version being recently released. You also saw the release of Mario Tennis Aces. The tail end of June brought with it Wolfenstein 2 and Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, worthy third-party titles. July saw the release of Octopath Traveler, a game in which Square Enix had to apologize for running out of stock. Twice. Then you have the holiday releases of Dark Souls Remastered, possibly, Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, despite some lukewarm feedback from some fans who complained that a kid's game is still a kid's game. This will also sell consoles and appeals to the Pokemon Go audience as well. It's extremely disingenuous to say that they dropped the ball. Not every game will be a system seller. Those are few and far between. There are, however, titles listed here that will sell well, and that's the point. They've already reached the 20 million mark in their second year, making Microsoft sweat a little. Recent reporting says that Xbox, culminating with all three iterations of the One, has only reached 30 million, which will be 5 years old this November. So, to put this in all caps, Nintendo Switch 20 million units before the end of its second year. Microsoft's Xbox One 30 million units in 4 years. Stop overblowing shit, dude. It's getting really effing old. And it's interesting because I mentioned a vast majority of those games that he brings up in my video and how none of them are system sellers. And my point wasn't that every game needs to be a system seller. It's that we should expect a system seller every 6 months. Is that so much to ask? My primary emphasis in there was a Mario Odyssey, the last system seller, came out in October. The next system seller isn't coming out till November of this year. That's 13 months of distance between system sellers. You can't do that. That is what you call a drought of system sellers, not a drought of games. I was very clear in the video, there hasn't been a drought of games. If you own a Switch, chances are something, at least one game, whatever, released this year you're interested in, whether it was like Wolfenstein 2, Crash Insane Trilogy, Octopath Traveler, Mario Tennis Aces. Heck, maybe you bought Labo. I did. I got the box for it right here that you can't really see on camera. I am perfectly satisfied with the games that have come out. Maybe you're into games like Hollow Knight or something like that. But or Celeste. There's been a lot of great games this year, but unfortunately none of them are system sellers. And my issue isn't that every game needs to be a system seller. It's that the system sellers are not spaced out well enough. I think Splatoon 2 probably could have been pushed to this year. Would that have been a good decision? It would have certainly hurt launch, but it would have helped this year. The thing is, we need system sellers this year. The fact that we're not getting them until October and December, does that mean we have to wait another year until Pokemon comes out again for system sellers? Now, I doubt it, because Fire Emblem Three Houses is due out, and I think that's going to be a system seller. There might be an Animal Crossing in there somewhere that, where I'm just speculating it exists. We have no evidence to suggest it does, but I'm just left pondering, because this comment, the reason I chose this one is it seemed to represent a lot of the naysayers of the video's opinion that obviously they haven't dropped the ball, because look at all the games that have come out. Look at the sales. They just reported all these great sales. Yeah, it reached 20 million units in 14, 15 months. That's great. That's great. It hit 20 million units. That is a fantastic number. And yes, it's ahead of the Xbox. But since when is the Xbox One at 30 million units or more, as you suggest, which is right around what the N64 did, considered a success story? Yes, I love the N64, but the N64 marked a massive decline in sales from the SNES. The SNES marked a massive decline in sales from the NES, and it culminated with the GameCube, which marked a massive decline in sales from the N64. So since when is 30 million, which is 50 million less than Xbox 360 put out there, a good measuring stick for success for Nintendo? A better measuring stick, and one I think I even mentioned in the video, is that Switch is actually on the same sales pace as PlayStation 4 was in the same time period with one less holiday. That is awesome. That is amazing. I am thrilled that that's happening. But the problem is that a vast majority of those sales came in the first year when Nintendo Switch was ahead of the sales pace of PlayStation 4. Meaning, since that launch month and the first 12 months of the fiscal year, this last quarter did not sell very well in comparison to what PlayStation 4 was selling in a very similar quarter at the same time period in their system's lifespan. So I am measuring the Nintendo Switch against the number one company in the market right now. I'm not measuring them against the company that's in last place. Like, why would you measure it against that? So I look at it as, if you're using Xbox One to talk about how amazing Switch is doing, then you're missing the point. My point wasn't that Switch isn't doing well. My point wasn't that there is no content. My point was that we shouldn't wait 13 months between system sellers when you had such a stellar launch year. They had 4 system sellers. We should have had another system seller this year. I don't know what that would have been. I don't know if a system seller from last year should have been pushed over. Some people argue Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Fire Emblem Warriors should have been pushed to this year. I don't know that those would have been system sellers either. But yeah, the games are selling well. I'm not denying the sales data. 18 million software, units sold in the last fiscal quarter. That's great. But only 1.88 million Switches. That's not so great. That's good. It's very good. It's not a failure. It's awesome. But there was 3.2, 3.4, 3.3, whatever million PlayStation 4 sold in the same quarter. PlayStation 4 had a system seller in that quarter with God of War. Oh, and don't forget the trickle over sales of Monster Hunter World. So they had a couple system sellers hit earlier this year. Not only did Nintendo not have any system sellers hit in this last quarter, they didn't have any hit in the quarter before, which was December, January, and February. Like March, or January, February, March, or whatever. January, February, March had no system sellers in it either. So we've gone 2 straight quarters, 6+ months, because if you include December, that's 7. So 6+ months of no system sellers. And we have no system sellers in the future. Now, someone did argue, like Two Holmes, mad respect to Two Holmes, he's a developer that works at, I believe he works at Activision Blizzard now. He used to work at EA. So mad respect to him. He's actually one of our supporters on Patreon, at patreon.com/NintendoPrime. And he went on to point out that he thinks Octopath Traveler is a system seller because, it created a 20% boost for 1 week in sales in Japan. And obviously with it being sold out physically, maybe the sales have slowed down, although it stayed at number 1 on the Japan eShop, I think, every week since. That's great. I think that's fantastic. But Japan is a very small sample size and a very small part of the overall Switch market. When you have 20 million Switches out there and Japan represents less than 2 million of them, then what's the rest of the world doing? How's the rest of the world reacting to Octopath Traveler? I talked about, we know that Octopath Traveler crossed 1 million units in sales, and that means a majority of those sales came outside of Japan, but that doesn't mean that it also sold Switches. Based on June's MPD, Mario Tennis Aces didn't really move that many Switches, so did Octopath Traveler do better? I don't know, but to me, system sellers aren't about that little 1 week bump. System sellers are bumps that last for weeks and weeks and weeks. And unfortunately for Octopath Traveler in Japan, we won't really know how well that game could have did for system sales because it was undersupplied. But that happened, and there's nothing we could do about it. Hence, it wasn't a system seller, maybe through its own supply chain faults. I don't know. But that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick to it until there's data that comes up that proves otherwise. And keep in mind, I'm not down on Switch. I think Switch is due to have one of the best holidays maybe in Nintendo history in terms of sales, and I do think 2019 they're going to kill it with at least 3 system sellers. Maybe they'll come back with 4. And yeah, they don't have to sell the system to me. I already own it. So this is about bringing in new audiences. And a lot of people will say, but look at all these other games. The last year's system sellers are a reason for people to jump in. If they were a reason for people to jump in that haven't jumped in already, they would have already jumped in. Reality is, not everyone's in the Mario, not everyone's in the Zelda, not everyone's in the Splatoon. They need something else. So we're getting a couple of those something else's later this year. We'll see if we get more of them next year. It's interesting to me that the 2 system sellers coming this year released less than a month from each other. I feel like there should have been better spacing, but you know what? What are you going to do? Nintendo's going to kill it this holiday, and we'll just have to wait and see how things shake out at the end of this current fiscal year. Remember, Nintendo projects to sell 100 million units of software, talking about Switch-only software, and also 20 million units of Switch. We'll see if they can come close to those projections. Right now, they are on pace to do worse than last year, and they did not hit 20 million in the last fiscal year, even if you include launch month. So, we'll see what happens. Anyways, moving on, the next comment comes from Nintendo dominates June 2018's NPD. Mario Tennis Aces, NES Classic, Switch, and more. And it's kind of a little bit of an analysis of the June NPD. And the BitBlock chimed in, and this is what he had to say. Mario Tennis doesn't deserve its success. It was quite a letdown with very minimal content and a very unbalanced cast. Its good sales are not really something to celebrate, I feel, but rather a grim look into Nintendo's lazy future. They keep seeing they can do very, very little work and reap loads of financial success, because the average person will eat up any garbage they puke up on Switch. And I think there's a lot of criticisms that can be lobbied towards Mario Tennis Aces. I certainly did several of those criticisms myself in my own review of the game, one of the few reviews I have on this channel. But I think it's a little interesting reading this comment when you also reviewed the game, BitBlock. And here's what you actually had to say about the game at the very beginning of your review.
I really like what Camelot has done with the core gameplay mechanics in Mario Tennis Aces. It's weird because tennis is kind of a boring sport in my opinion. It's just a constant back and forth, and it can become kind of bland after a while. However, this game added so many different techniques that you can pull off, I find myself constantly on the edge of my seat and always engaged in what's happening. Slowing down time to make my way to a ball that was out of reach, or flicking in a direction on the right analog stick to perform a special move and recover the ball, leaping into the air, going into first-person view, and then aiming a shot that's hit at a lightning fast speed towards my opponent? Yeah, that feels pretty good. This is all really great. Of course, you can't pull off any of these fancy moves unless you have your power built up in your top meter. This makes some crazy strategical fun in Mario Tennis Aces. I really love the core fundamentals of this game, and I think Camelot has done wonders for preventing tennis from becoming boring.
Now, obviously the rest of your review, you spent criticizing the content in the game, the lackluster single player, the missing modes, the missing upgrades, the missing RPG style elements that could have been there, how there could have been even more court variety and more character variety and a better balanced roster and you know, the ability for online tournaments and all this other stuff that you might have brought up. I don't know if you actually said anything about online tournaments. That's more of one of my desires. But I think it's interesting that you lobbied this sort of criticism towards it, because you called it that it's a grim outlook for Nintendo's lazy future, yet in your own review of the game, you basically talk about how this might be the best Mario Tennis gameplay that's ever existed in the series. And I came to that same conclusion myself, that Mario Tennis Aces gameplay is stunning. The core of the game is the best I think I've ever seen a Mario Tennis, or even do I go as far to say the best I've ever seen a Mario sports title be? So I don't think it's correct to say this game was made lazily. If that was the case, the gameplay wouldn't feel so good. The hype levels for the game heading into launch were because of the gameplay. The demos they did, the E3 demo, all of it was gameplay focused, and the gameplay was excellent. You even admit that the gameplay is excellent. But unfortunately, they dropped the ball in other aspects. So I think what's key about it is it's sold well because of the gameplay. Now, if it wants to sell even better, it needs to up its game next time around with the rest of the content and bring back some things that were in prior Mario Tennis games. We're actually in agreement on that front. I just think it's a little weird to see such a negative outlook of Nintendo because of the treatment of Mario Tennis Aces when the core of the game was fantastic and the best it's ever been. That, to me, doesn't scream lazy. The rest of the game, we can argue, might scream a little laziness. I don't know. I didn't develop the game. Camelot did. It wasn't even Nintendo locally that made it. But I gotta say, if they keep this gameplay and then offer a whole bunch of new modes and a better story and better upgrades and all this stuff for the next Mario Tennis, I'll jump in again for $60, and so will you. And so will many others. So, yeah, I think it's more of a test case of Nintendo proving that gameplay matters the most. But it can't be the only thing you worry about. And hopefully next time around, the next sports game that comes out, not only did they nail the gameplay, they put an emphasis on the different gameplay modes and the single player and all that stuff, and make it a far more enjoyable experience to play long haul. As it stands right now, my only fun I have playing the game is basically when I play against my friends, or I play against some of the Nintendo Prime community. That's amazing because the gameplay is that good. Unfortunately, I just don't like the rest of the game, and I think you agree with me. I just don't. The unbalanced cast. I mean, they started balancing out. Bowser Jr. They have a little more work to do, but Honestly, you keep seeing they can do very little work and reap loads of financial success because the average person will eat up any garbage they puke on Switch. I'm not sure the average person bought Mario Tennis. I think the people that bought it were the consumers interested in Mario Tennis already that played the demo. That's just my 2 cents, because the gameplay is that good. Is the gameplay worth $60 on its own? I don't know, but it's good. Anyways, let's move on to the last comment, and this one comes from last week's Prime comments, in fact. It's the difficulty settings in games, upgrading and curating Switch, etc. And this comment comes from S. Spencer, and he said, I feel Prime comments would be a much better series if the comments replied to were more substantive. Replying to people who are hating/trolling doesn't provide a good discussion, nor give insight to the different points of view. Responding to people who disagree with you and state those reasons in a substantive manner would make for a much more interesting series than Nintendo Prime reads hate comments for 20-ish minutes. Just my 2 cents. I love the rest of your content, but this series could be better in my opinion. And I agree, the series can be better. I think I made a mistake when I talked about how I'd select comments in mentioning hate. I don't specifically mean I'm going for people that are trolling. I did do a Prime Comments Extra last week that included, a massive long 4-page comment that was clearly not just a hater of my channel, but a hater of Nintendo. And repeated himself a lot, and ironically, it's actually one of the criticisms of me is that I repeat myself a lot. But it's a very interesting to see this kind of feedback. And one, I want to say, Spencer, I appreciate it. I appreciate any sort of constructive criticism that is aimed at not only my channel, but how you think it can be better. I think what happens oftentimes when we get criticism is people don't suggest how things can be better. They'll just say, man, your audio sucks. As an example, when someone pointed out my audio sucked. But they didn't give me any suggestions on what I could do to make my audio better. Some of it's because they don't know my available audio equipment, and other of it's just because they don't personally know themselves how to make it better. They're just saying it sucks. And that is criticism, and it's kind of sort of constructive, but constructive criticism to me also involves offering some sort of a solution, or at least down the path of a solution. So as an example, you talked in here about how, Prime comments would be better if the comments replied were more substantive. So you're talking about, pick comments that disagree with you, but disagree with you with solid reasoning and logic so you can actually have a better discussion. And I kind of agree with that. I feel like I choose comments like that. I'm looking back at the comments this week. The BitBlock there, I don't know that he necessarily, he tried to give some reason for his outlook, but then it kind of contradicts some things. You had the other person saying that I was overblowing stuff because of all the games that have come out, and Nintendo Switch 20 million users in the second year, like making these points that I actually felt were nice and fine, but I disagreed, so I explained why. I think using hate and disagreement as a way to say that's how I pick comments, I think is a little bit disingenuous to the way I pick comments. Because, for example, I'm not grabbing this comment because I disagree with you. I'm grabbing it because I feel like it creates an interesting discussion around what Prime Comments currently is and what it could be in the future. And this is where, instead of me talking more about this particular comment, I actually want to throw it out to all of you guys watching right now. Do you like Prime Comments? Are there things you wish I did more of? Do you want me to respond to more comments but make the episode shorter, as if that's even possible? Do you want the episodes to be longer? Do you want an hour-long Prime Comments where I just sit in this chair and grab as many comments as I can and fit it in an hour? Do you want it to be a live stream? Do you want it to be this? Do you want it to be that? Actually, never mind. I don't want it to be a live stream. Prime Comments, I actually like it the way it is, this in terms of this format. So let me know where you guys think Prime Comments can get better, what I can do better. Just should I have somebody else pick out the comments for me to respond to? Maybe that's something that would be nice. I've done that in the past, but it's been a long time since I've had someone else pick out the comments. I don't know. Just give me your ideas for how you think I can make Prime Comments an even better show for you guys in the future. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rovajets from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one.